I was invited to take part in the network test for In Nightreign, and like everyone else, I was left with some conflicting thoughts. The game is not the next installment of the quote-unquote Souls series, nor is it even a sequel to Elden Ring itself. It's an always-online multiplayer spin-off that is closer to a randomizer minigame than a traditional FromSoft RPG. In fact, I've heard a lot of people describe Nightreign as feeling like something you might have downloaded from Nexus mods, and you know, for better or worse, yeah, I think that's an accurate description. This game is fun, make no mistake about it, but it's equal parts good ideas and jank, which I guess is something we need to explore. This is a glitch video after all, right? Well, sort of. In this video, I'll be showcasing the exploits I found during my time with the network test, rest assured, but I also want to take this opportunity to talk about why I likely won't make a glitch video for the full release of Nightreign when it drops on May 30th, but also why I think Nightreign represents a bright future for FromSoft, and perhaps even a return to form. Drop in Limveld. We've got a lot to talk about. This video is sponsored by Henson Shaving, the lifestyle brand whose mission it is to make shaving healthier. Full disclosure, Henson did not contact me for the sponsorship. I've been using a Henson razor for months already and liked it so much I contacted them and asked if they wanted to become a channel sponsor. The razor I've been using is called the AL13, and not only will it last your entire lifetime, it's scientifically proven to cause less skin irritation than its competitors. The AL13 accepts any standard single-use disposable razor blade and then bends it to a precise 30-degree angle to prevent the blade from digging into your skin. Not only is this the most comfortable shaving experience I've ever had, it's also the cheapest, costing me less than 10 cents per shave, since the razor itself never has to be replaced. Check out the links in the pinned comment or video description if you'd like to make the switch and pick up an AL13 for yourself. I genuinely cannot recommend it enough. Thanks to Henson for the sponsorship, and for making a high-quality product that I'm happy to get behind. Simple as. Despite sharing the name Elden Ring, the core gameplay loop of Nightreign is radically different. So let's talk about what's changed. Mechanically, it's a battle royale where you drop on an island with randomly spawned items and enemies to scavenge for equipment before the circular safe area closes around you. Huh, you know, it somehow feels like I've played a game like that before. Or 20 of them. The key difference being that in Nightreign you aren't fighting other players, you're fighting enemies and bosses from various Souls games. And I do mean Souls games, not just Elden Ring itself. Over the course of the next 15 to 20 minutes, the titular rain will close in, covering more and more of the island, disabling the sites of grace you've unlocked, and inflicting damage over time if you find yourself trapped within it. Once the safe area reaches its smallest size, a boss will spawn, along with a wave of smaller enemies, and once these are defeated, the rain will retreat, the full island will become accessible again, and the entire process will repeat itself. Each of these waves are referred to as days in-game, so you start on day 1, defeating your first boss marks the beginning of day 2, and then after the second boss is defeated, a portal appears with the prompt, "Travel into the Spirit Shelter," which takes the team into an entirely different map for the third and final day. It is here that you fight the final boss of the expedition, the outcome of which determines if your run was ultimately a success or a failure. There was only one day 3 boss in the network test, Gladius, Beast of Night, also referred to as the Tricephalos by the expedition menu in the Roundtable Hold. Essentially, it's a Cerberus with a big God of War style chainsword that it whips around to crowd control players. After enough time passes, it will split itself up into 3 individual wolves, so that your team of 3 is forced to either each fight one individually, or allow multiple to gang up on a single teammate, which, as you might imagine, is less than ideal. I managed to take down Gladius a few times, but I also had just as many devastating losses to this thing. It is both a very difficult and a very fun fight, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Whether you defeat it, or all 3 members of the team get down simultaneously, the end result is the same. The expedition ends, your rune level and equipment are reset, and you are sent back to the Roundtable Hold. But it's not only the mechanics borrowed from battle royales and roguelikes that makes Nightreign stand out the most from its predecessors. It's the fact that in this game, you don't create a character, you select one. There were 4 playable characters in the network test: Wilder, Guardian, Duchess, and Recluse. It's pretty standard practice for FromSoft to give us a set of pre-made characters to play with during a network test. That's how it was done with every test from Dark Souls 2 to Dark Souls Remastered. I should know, I was part of all of them. But in this case, these 4 pre-designed characters will carry over into the final release, as there will be no character creator present in Nightreign. Far more than simple starting classes, each of these characters have 3 unique abilities, one that is passive, one that is active with a short cooldown mapped to triangle plus L2, and one that is active with a long cooldown, which they refer to as the character's ultimate art, mapped to triangle plus R2. This is generally something not present in battle royales at all, and is instead more reminiscent of hero shooters like Overwatch or Valorant, so I'm really surprised to see it here, but I actually ended up liking its implementation. Things like Wilder's grappling hook, which quickly pulls him to enemies or parts of the environmental geometry, and the Guardian's ultimate art, which gains an insane amount of vertical height before dive bombing back into the ground, are both begging to be used to clip out of bounds somewhere. And I actually spent a significant portion of my allocated network test time attempting to do just that in the roundtable hold. Unfortunately, to little success, which is a shame given how small of a portion of the roundtable was actually accessible during the network test. I would have loved to have clipped through some of these invisible barriers and gotten a preview of what this area will look like in the final release. While only 4 characters were available in the network test, 8 will be released in the full game, with the potential for more to be added as DLC, since we know there will be at least one DLC pack coming later. From has been pretty hush-hush about most of these other characters, but Bandai Namco has given us a gigantic tease about the 5th one, which I haven't seen nearly enough people talking about. His given name is Iron Eye, and it appears he's holding a bow while wearing some sort of shingled armor, with maybe a big quiver or possibly even a great bow on his back. This is presumably a dedicated ranger, which I think most people agree that up until now has been very hard to make viable in Souls games. With this being the case, I tested out bows just a bit in Nightreign with some of the characters I had access to, and they behaved just like they do in Elden Ring. In other words, not good. It is worth mentioning that there were no arrows or bolts found at all in the network test. Equipping a bow or crossbow automatically gave you infinite ammo for the given weapon, which is an indirect buff to bows at least. While I would love nothing more than for a dedicated archer character to exist, it seems like the combat style will be forced to rely heavily on his unique abilities in order to be viable. So, we'll see how Iron Eye performs after the full game releases. Speaking of new abilities, the player's controls have been revamped slightly as well. Torrent is not present in Nightreign, and to make up for his absence, all characters were given a much faster sprint, triggered by clicking in the left analog stick. Make no mistake, this is not a replacement for the traditional sprint you can do in any Souls game by holding down the dodge button. That's still in the game. The sprint map to L3 is an entirely different animation, and a completely different movement speed. This took me a while to get used to, but after an hour or two, it felt far more natural to click in the left stick to run than it does to hold circle. And now I'm wondering why this hasn't been the default running control scheme for every game since Demon's Souls. Man, imagine the saved medical bills from not needing claw corrective surgery. Taking a closer look at it, I'm fairly certain this new running animation was lifted directly from Sekiro, which also explains the speed. Wolf isn't known for being exactly slow, after all. Supporting evidence for this theory is the fact that all characters in Nightreign also have the ability to kick off of walls for additional height by pressing the jump button once again in midair. You know, exactly how it works in Sekiro. And just like Wolf, these characters can grab the edges of platforms to pull themselves up, though this is a process that happens automatically in Nightreign. The fact that this new movement tech has been integrated into a game with Elden Ring in the name, as well as the fact that it has been meshed with traditional Souls-style combat so effortlessly, is a great sign that FromSoft isn't afraid to continue innovating, even when experimenting with spin-off titles. And I'm not joking when I say that I hope both the sprint on L3 and the wall jumping become standard practice for every game they release moving forward. It feels that good. In terms of the glitch potential, if you've seen my glitch video for Sekiro, you likely already know how exploitable these two movement abilities are, being used for several, albeit difficult, skips in the Sekiro any % speedrun that allow the player to avoid fighting certain bosses and access areas of the game sooner than originally intended. The fact that these movement abilities are now a part of Nightreign all but guarantees that similar exploits could emerge in this game as well. But if and when they do, will they actually be beneficial in the same way? In a Battle Royale game? I'm not so sure. Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, all these games have the same ultimate goal. Reach the end of the game, defeat the final boss, watch the credits roll. All these games have their own unique glitches, so how you go about exploiting each one is unique and different and interesting, but the end goal is still the same. Nightreign, on the other hand, does not share this end goal. There is no quote-unquote final boss, and there are no areas to be locked out of. Immediately upon landing in Limfeld, we have free reign to go everywhere and do anything already. So there's no unintended jump to make or late game ledge to reach that would be beneficial and constitute a sequence break. Case in point, Dark Souls speedrunner Regal accidentally triggered the top-down camera glitch during the network test, which, as you know, is extremely powerful in older FromSoft games because it disables the loading of new actors and therefore allows skipping into late game areas early. But because Nightreign is not a linear game, and areas are accessed via menus and a network connection, there is nowhere to take this glitch, and performing it here becomes totally useless. Here's another example. Parry dropping is possible in Nightreign since the parry and riposte animations are shared across both it and Elden Ring, but there isn't much use in performing a glitch to ignore fall damage in a game that doesn't have any fall damage in the first place, now is it? Which, by the way, FromSoft, just so you know, now that you've given us a taste of what your games could be like with no fall damage, you can never put it back in any game ever again. Okay, thanks. The closest thing we have to a final boss in Nightreign is whatever is found within the Spirit Shelter on day 3 of an expedition. And since the Spirit Shelter constitutes its own dedicated map separate from the island, you might consider the potential for a wrong warp to take us there. But let's not forget the fact that Nightreign is always online and that you will always have cooperators in your party. You can forget about executing a wrong warp in the traditional way they're done in Elden Ring, since any disconnect from the network will immediately end your expedition and send you back to the Round Table Hold. So it's not that Nightreign doesn't or won't have glitches. All games have glitches. It's that we have to reevaluate how we use them in order to extract any advantage out of performing them in this game. Nightreign may have Soul-style combat, but at its core, it is not a Souls game. The barrier to the end boss of a given run is not a physical location, it's time. And as a result, the general tone of the exploits used in Nightreign will likely manifest more as small optimizations that allow players to be more time efficient during their runs, and less as these sorts of visually flashy, game-breaking skips that cut out half the game's runtime in a single glitch. So, with that being the case, let's talk about the sorts of glitches that would be useful in a game like Nightreign. One I triggered almost immediately and continuously took advantage of over the course of the network test was yet another returning glitch from Sekiro. Because most of the enemies found in Nightreign are copied and pasted directly from Elden Ring, we can predict some of their behavior. If we use the wall jump ability to kick off of a tall enemy to gain an amount of height not possible in vanilla Elden Ring, and quickly press R1, it's possible to trick the game into thinking we drop down from above, executing a plunging attack, rather than a standard aerial swing. This obviously deals a ton of damage without ever requiring the player to climb up to some specific part of the environment and drop down from above, as originally intended. This is essentially the return of the Corrupted Monk glitch from Sekiro, which also was an exploit of the same wall-kicking mechanic. Although the Corrupted Monk herself can't be kicked against for additional height, parts of the environment can, and if Wolf does this to reach a level of verticality that wasn't thought to be possible in her very flat arena, the boss can be insta-killed by abusing a plunging attack script that was left present in the Corrupted Monk's actor, but intended to be used during the second encounter with her later in the game, where verticality is present. In the case of Nightreign, the immediate use case I thought of for this glitch is to one-shot the Flaming Chariot bosses since they explode after a plunging attack has been executed on them, but this exploit can be performed on any enemy that has both the ability to be kicked up like a wall and has a dedicated plunging attack animation associated with it. I mean, even if they don't explode, you'll still be dealing massive damage, right? Because Flame Chariots in particular were killed so easily with this method, I always prioritized fighting them by looking for camps on the map with a fire icon, which could be cleared and looted in a matter of a few seconds. Once again, time efficiency proves to be the most advantageous. In terms of useful glitches that might emerge in the future, the far and away most beneficial one I can think of is a rune duplication glitch. Runes are in short supply in Nightreign, and leveling up as quickly as possible is extremely important to the overall success of a run. Unlike vanilla Elden Ring, you don't allocate points into dedicated stats. Instead, you simply pay a certain amount of runes to raise your overall character level, which raises all of your stats inverse proportionally. You start out at level 1, and the maximum level is only 15 if that gives you any clue about how much of a difference a single level makes. Going from 1 to 2 doubles your HP, for example. Because the only barrier to leveling is having the required runes, a potential rune duplication glitch could be used to take a character to the maximum level of 15 upon finding your first Site of Grace at the very beginning of a run. Not only would this have massive benefits to your overall damage output and negation, but certain weapons you find also have level requirements associated with them, which, in a battle royale, is, well, it's certainly a choice. Being able to immediately level to 15 via a glitch would mitigate the number of times you carry around a legendary weapon for the entire expedition without ever collecting enough runes to use it, which, believe me, does happen. Unfortunately, a rune duplication glitch has yet to ever be discovered in Elden Ring, much less in Nightreign, where the amount of menus and equipment you'd have access to in order to set a potential exploit is far more limited, so I wouldn't hold my breath. Realistically, the way a game-breaking glitch would likely emerge in Nightreign is something equivalent to the chainsaw glitch from Elden Ring or the bow glitch from Dark Souls 3. Something that layers attack animations to create an insane damage output never intended to be possible, and ultimately one-shot bosses and enemies. With this game being an always-online multiplayer experience, this would raise all sorts of ethical issues regarding the use of glitches to exploit other people's games who never consented to have the video game they paid for with their own money played for them by someone else, essentially. Look, you know I have no moral qualms about performing exploits. I believe that if you own a game, you have the right to do anything you like with it. The way I've always seen it is that if you look up one of my videos and use the glitches I teach to skip through an entire game and then never play it again, that's a skill issue, and that's on you. But that also doesn't describe most of the people who make up this audience. Most people who are interested in glitches, myself included, have already 100%ed the game in question, and know it like the back of their hand already. The point of doing a glitch playthrough is to discover new things to love about a game you already love, not ruin your first experience. But this places Nightreign in an awkward position. Can this game ever truly be 100%ed? Certainly not in the traditional sense. I mean, I'm sure it will have achievements and everything, but the point of this game is to have fun online interactions with other people and make friends while playing Souls, not showing off how get good you can be at fighting Soldier of Godric. If you'd like to use glitches to cheat your way through Nightreign, I'm totally cool with that. I have an entire channel dedicated to cheating, after all. The part I'm not cool with is the fact that whenever you exploit an online game, you always have the possibility of cheating through someone else's first experience, who may just want to play the game normally for a while to learn how the mechanics are supposed to work. The last thing I want to see is this game develop some sort of chainsaw glitch meta, where players forcibly disengage from the mechanics that make it unique because their teammates are one-shotting everything with exploits. And that brings me to my final point about Nightreign, which is, guys, this game really isn't meant to be taken that seriously. I've been seeing constant complaints online about how Nightreign is a cheap cash grab that hasn't had the same amount of time and effort put into it as other games in FromSoft's library, and to that I say, yeah, duh. The point of Nightreign is absolutely to make quick cash to fund larger projects going on behind the scenes at FromSoft right now. That's why the game is made of remixed Elden Ring assets, that's why the full game release is happening so soon after the original announcement, and that's also why I think this game is such good news for the future of FromSoft as a company. If their goal was to make as much money as possible from Nightreign, it would be free to download, there would be cosmetic microtransactions, the characters would be locked behind paywalls or a gacha slot machine, there would be a battle pass with multiple seasons, and it would be a live service game that From would simply maintain forever and never need to release another game again. I could list off a dozen game studios that have followed that same exact path, because like it or not, it's insanely profitable. But that's not who FromSoft is, and that's not what Nightreign is either. This is a project being handled by a B team, and its $40 price tag screams to me that its purpose is to tide us over while we wait for bigger and better things. You know, sort of like another game I can think of that might have been positioned to sell based on being part of an already established and successful IP, and might have released to buy time for the team to finish the project that became Bloodborne. But who even knows what that game could possibly be? Your guess is as good as mine. Now, is a game that is essentially a multiplayer Elden Ring mod worth the asking price of $40? That's an entirely different question, and one you'll have to answer for yourself based on how much the subject matter interests you. If you're planning to play on console, I'm sure it will require a PS Plus or Xbox Live subscription as well, so the cost of that also has to be factored in. But I'm not overly critical about the price, because if Nightreign doesn't seem like it will be your thing, it seems like a fine one to pass up on without missing out on much in my opinion. After all, much of its content is made up of things you've likely seen before. When asked about the lore implications of reusing bosses originally designed for Dark Souls again in Nightreign, the director, Junya Ishizaki, said, "The primary reason for these pre-existing bosses in Nightreign is from a gameplay perspective," adding, "I thought it'd be kinda fun." If that doesn't tell you that this game is non-threatening, I don't know what else to say. In other words, Nightreign is meant to be a bit of fun with your friends, and that's all there is to it. It's not a replacement for a mainline FromSoft RPG, and if you'll forgive me for reading between the lines a bit here, I suspect Nightreign is actually funding FromSoft's next big project. I hope this game buys them all the time and money they need to make that future title, whatever it is, exactly what it needs to be. And I also hope some of the experimental quality of life features we're seeing in Nightreign, like the sprint on L3 and the removal of fall damage, signify evolutions FromSoft is making in their design philosophy that will elevate the Souls formula to an even higher tier of organic gameplay that will continue to revolutionize the industry, as so many of their games have done in the past. Whatever their next project is, I can't wait to see it. And in the meantime, yeah, I'll be playing Nightreign. I know this was a bit of a different video for this channel, but I appreciate you watching this far. There were going to be a lot of people asking about glitches in Nightreign if I didn't address it in some way, so I hope this clarifies why a traditional glitch video for this game wouldn't really work, or at least, not in the way I'd like to cover it. If you want to see more Nightreign content from me, you can see my full experience with the network test on my second channel, Phobia VODs. There's a lot more over there than just Nightreign, so be sure to check it out at least once if you haven't already. Links in the description and pinned comment. And speaking of glitch videos, I've had something of my own cooking for the last few months that I've been trying to get just right before I release it, and I'm excited to announce that it's almost ready. What is, without a doubt, the game that I've gotten the most requests to cover will finally be getting its dedicated glitch video this very month, and I have a feeling you might have heard of it before. See you there.